So let's get into our shots and chasers this week. Noah, I'm going to start with you for the odd number games because Atlanta is number 7 on our list. So Minnesota 2-0 hosting the Houston Texans. Texans 2.5-point favorites on the road. We just saw the 49ers go in to Minneapolis and get beat. Who's taking it?
This is a tight game, man. First of all, I think a big key for the Vikings, Addison and Jefferson are both questionable. So I think it depends on how close to 100% those guys will be. Those are definitely two big pieces for that offense. Dallas Turner as well is questionable. I really like him on the defensive side of the ball. Joe Mixon questionable as well. I think if he plays, that's a big boost for the Texans. I think this is a defensive slugfest. In my opinion, I actually have more faith in the Vikings defense based off what I saw for the 49ers, whereas with the Texans, they struggled against Anthony Richardson and the Colts in week 1, just barely scraped it out. And I know they looked amazing against the Bears, but that Bears offensive line is just horrendous, man. I mean, Caleb Williams was pressuring 80. I sent this to you, Tom, before the show. 80% of Caleb Williams' snaps, he was pressured. That means 1 out of 5 pass plays, he was able to have a clean pocket to even try and throw the ball. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So I'd probably give the Vikings the edge defensively, but offensively, you got to give it to the Texans. So the question for me then is, do you have more faith in the Texans offense or the Vikings defense to win this game? And in my opinion, I think C.J. Stroud is amazing. I think their top 3 receivers in Collins, Dell, and Stephon Diggs are great. Joe Mixon has stepped in very nicely, running the ball and catching it as well. He had a lot of really big catches in that Bears game. And defensively, Will Anderson's a stud. So I'll probably give the Vikings a very slight edge. But I think it's going to be a close game, man. I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest. But I'm going to pick the Texans to win this one 17-14.
Jason, what about you?
I'm going to disagree. Literally 2 words. Justin Jefferson. I mean, you really can't, it really doesn't matter who he has at quarterback. I think, like Noah said, the Texans have a really good team. And again, they looked good against the Bears, but that's the Bears. I feel like the Vikings have a little bit more of a fundamentally sound offense. I just think Justin Jefferson has just been the best receiver in the league since his arrival, and he proves it every single time he steps on the field. So I'm going to give a slight edge to the Vikings. I do like how they played against the 49ers. They could be a low-key, sneaky, division, winning team. The Texans have a great offense. I do like how they get Joe Mixon involved. They kind of use him all around. And that could be a test for the Vikings defense. I haven't seen too much of Aaron Jones on the Vikings. I want to see if they are going to get him a little bit more going. Like you guys said, Darnold's been great. Yeah, it's a close call for me, but I'm gonna give it to the Vikings just because I'm a big Justin Jefferson guy. So give me the Vikings. Let's go 24-21.
Yeah, so his status is day-to-day. They do expect him to play. So that's good news. We know he's a little banged up in that week 2 game. I think the Vikings defense is going to keep them in it. I also think 3-0 is too rich for a second-year head coach and a second-year quarterback this soon. I think they're both really, really outstanding at each of their jobs. The Vikings are legit, man. They held the 49ers to 17 points last week, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Jason, I'm going with Minnesota here too. I mean, they're home, and, Houston's favored by 2.5. Yeah, Vikings money line straight up here. That defense is legit. And seeing what they did to Brock Purdy, imagine what they could do to an offensive line that is not as good as San Francisco's. And they relied heavily on Stroud's mobility last year and his ability to extend plays and make those deep throws. Will Stroud even have a chance to make those deep throws? You got Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard, who is a former Texan. and Andrew Van Ginkel and Harrison Phillips up the middle. Those guys are legit. Blake Cashman, too, was also a former Houston Texan. So 2 former Houston Texans on that Vikings starting defense. I'm going to go Minnesota here in this one, but I would not be shocked if Houston finds a way because C.J. Stroud is a rare talent, and he could easily win them this game. So we'll see. Man, Vikings 3-0. I mean, you just imagine that's with Sam Darnold. Crazy. All right, next up, Jason, we're going to start with you here on this one. The Philadelphia Eagles have lost their last 7 of 8 games on the continent of North America. Does that streak continue? Will Saquon Barkley drop another pass for $14 million a year? You tell me.
Oh, give me the Saints on this one. I'm not gonna lie. The Eagles probably are the better team, but I think they're hitting a little bit of a cold streak right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. Noah's gonna love to hear this. I was very impressed with the way the Falcons played them. Outside of the tush push and Saquon, they didn't really have much going for them on offense. Granted, I'm pretty sure AJ Brown was out. But still, you got guys like AJ Terrell, Matt Judon, Jesse Bates. I mean, they were all doing their job. And Jesse Bates on that last play of the game, that's why you signed him in free agency last year to make plays like that. I don't know. Like the Eagles haven't been like convincing to me this year. If you ask me, I think they got away from the Packers like just barely in that game in Brazil. They didn't convincingly win that game to me. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Saints. Like I said, Alvin Kamara looks like he's back in his prime form. Derek Carr is not playing bad either. Rashid Shaheed, underrated wide receiver. And again, the Saints defense has just been playing out of their mind. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Saints on this one. And they're at home. Yeah, and you know how that Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Give me the Saints. I'm surprised a lot of people here. I'm gonna go with the Saints. Give me the Saints 31 and the Eagles 17. I think it's gonna be that type of game for the Saints.
Well, Tom, I really hate to say this, but I agree with Jason. I'm going with the Saints to win this game. I think if you asked me a week ago, I would have picked the Eagles. But just based off what I saw in week 2, I saw a Saints team that went on the road at Jerry's World AT&T Stadium, and they didn't just beat the Cowboys. They absolutely annihilated them. Rashid Shaheed, like Jason mentioned, back-to-back weeks with deep touchdowns. He's their deep threat. Derek Carr is killing it. Their offensive line looks strong. Alvin Kamara scored, 4 touchdowns. He looks amazing, both catching and running the football, by the way. Chris Olave is amazing. Juwan Johnson, underrated tight end. I mean, their offense just looks unstoppable right now. And like I said earlier, I think Clint Kubiak makes all the difference. They had Pete Carmichael last year. He was one of the worst play callers in all the NFL. You get Kubiak in, who was one of the, hottest attractions for an OC this offseason. They've looked amazing. And then you look at the Eagles, and obviously I know very well about this. I watched that game last night very closely, and I saw an Eagles defensive line that got basically no pressure on Kirk Cousins at all. I mean, honestly, I think you could have plopped all 3 of us on that defensive line. We would have gotten the same amount of pressure as that defense did. I mean, it was just not good at all. Their secondary looked poor. Darius Slay got absolutely dusted by Drake London on that game when he touched down. I mean, it was embarrassing. And then he's laughing about it with Drake London after the game. That's a terrible look. Philly fans have got to hate that, man. But Jalen Hurts, inconsistent. Interception was terrible. Now, I will say he was slightly pressured on that play. It did impact the throw, in my opinion, but it was still not a good read. It was a very low percentage play, and Jesse Bates made a play. And Jesse Bates made another really good play early in the game as well, by the way, to break up a potential touchdown to Devontae Smith. He was amazing. But they just completely choked that game. And, Saquon Barkley dropped the pass. In my opinion, they lost the game because, number one, they didn't take a field goal in the first quarter on a 4th and 4. And number two, they risked a passing play instead of running the football, taking 40 more seconds off, and it didn't work. I'm not impressed with the Eagles. I thought the Packers game, like Jason said, that was just a week 1 barn burner. Last team that has the football wins the type of game. I mean, that was an offensive shootout. They have not looked impressive. The Saints have looked amazing. And by the way, it's in the Superdome, which is easily a top 3, top 5 atmosphere in the entire NFL. I'm going with the Saints to win this one. I think the Eagles will slow down the Saints a little bit more than the Cowboys did, but not by much. I think unless something drastic happens with the Saints, they're going to keep it rolling. And I'm going to pick the Saints to win this one 31-21.
Fun fact. Ready for this? The Eagles have not beaten the Saints in the Superdome since 2007.
Oh my God.
It's been a long, long time. And a couple players you guys haven't mentioned yet. Alante Taylor at corner already has 5 tackles for loss this season and 3 sacks. He's a cornerback, guys. Paulson Adebo, a pick. Maybe we were wrong about Dennis Allen in week 1. There's still a lot of season left to be played, but I'll tell you something. They're partially 2-0 too. Yes, Kubiak's been great, but Dennis Allen, you got to give credit where credit is due. He has this team together. He has them in games. Chris Olave has been modest the first 2 games, and they're still winning. Kamara with 4 touchdowns. He's their bell cow offensively. Derek Carr, as Noah say, is no slouch either. He's a solid quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's a solid one. He's been a solid starter in this league since 2014. And typically quarterbacks for the Raiders don't last very long. He lasted very long, and he got a new deal with the Saints. And Rashid Shaheed, yeah, both you guys have said he's been phenomenal. A.J. Brown may or not play this week for the Eagles. It's a short week. Remember, they just played last night, and then they have to travel to New Orleans to play. I don't know if A.J. Brown's going to be ready. They did not get Jahan Dotson involved last night at all. It was all Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and even Grant Calcaterra for that matter. The Saints are winning this one 31-13. We all picked the Saints to score 31 points.
Crazy.
It's going to be that type of game.
Yeah, hammer Saints -2.5. Please, whatever you do. That means take the Eagles, guys. Another pair of 2-0 teams here. The Chargers.
Forgot they were
led by Jim Harbaugh, and the Steelers, led by Mike Tomlin. You got probably 2 Hall of Fame head coaches, right? At least one on the college level and one on the NFL level. Steelers have only scored 1 touchdown all season, but they're 2-0. The Giants scored 3 touchdowns last week and lost. Justin Fields continues to start. Noah, Justin Fields is a former Georgia Bulldog, and he's still staying alive in the NFL. I'm sure you're happy about, Georgia quarterbacks continuing to stick around there.
Well, hey, man, I got to admit, I used to not really like Justin Fields because of the way he left UGA, but the more I watched him with the Bears and I kind of felt sorry for him, kind of started rooting for him again. And, obviously I got to watch him week 1, and I saw bits on Red Zone of their game against the Broncos. To me, that offense, it looks like, they're not doing anything explosive, obviously, like you mentioned, the lack of touchdowns. But what I've really been impressed with Justin Fields is he's taking care of the football. They're not making mistakes. They're running the ball well. They have 2 solid running backs in Najee and Jalen Warren. George Pickens might be their only true go-to guy, but they have other guys that can step in and do a decent job. Their defense is excellent. TJ Watt is the best pass rusher in I almost said college football, in the NFL. That said, they're not playing the Broncos or a dysfunctional week 1 Atlanta Falcons offense in this one. They're playing a Chargers team that looks really good. That offense is running the rock, and I don't think that's what a lot of people expected from them. But I saw a stat earlier, guys. J.K. Dobbins is the only running back in NFL history with more than 250 career rushing attempts to average more than 6 yards per carry in his career. When he is healthy, he is an animal. And Gus Edwards is there as well, and he's no slouch either. Justin Herbert, really solid. And by the way, receiving wise, remember when people were saying because he was dropping passes in camp and preseason that Quentin Johnston looks like a bust? He had 2 touchdowns last week. He is coming along nicely. They have Lad McConkey as well. Josh Palmer, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, I believe he missed week 2. So I don't know. I don't know if he's coming back this week or not, but that's another guy that they could add in as well at some point. I think this will be a defensive slugfest, but at the end of the day, I got to pick between one of the quarterbacks to win the game. I'm going Justin Herbert. No disrespect to Justin Fields. I think he's looked solid, but Herbert can go out and win you a game by himself pretty much. And that offensive line has looked ridiculous up front. They've invested a lot in it. Your boy Joe Alt, my boy Jamari Sawyer, they're killing it up front, man. Give me the Chargers to win this one 20-17.
Jason.
I'm gonna take the Chargers as well for the simple fact that both. I know our guy Pasquale was out there watching this, but the Steelers have had a pretty easy schedule. I mean, week 1 they had who did they have week 1? Denver. Week 2 they had was it New England?
The Steelers had Falcons week 1 and Denver week 2.
Falcons week 1.
Yep.
Which I think they escaped. Week 2 they had Denver, who hasn't really put it together yet. And I think their schedule only gets harder from here. I think this is going to be a real test to see what type of team they're going to be this season. You know, usually they're like that middle of the pack 9-8 wild card team. But I don't know. I'm just not impressed with what I've seen so far. I really genuinely think they've just gotten by in their first 2 games. They haven't won convincingly, and I think this is going to be a real test. And I do remember in our last show, I put John Harbaugh on. Wait, is it John or Jim? I forget which one. Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat for coaches. Because like I said, he did his thing with Michigan, but I wanted to see what he can do. And the Chargers, this is relatively the same team from last year. If anything, a few flips and switches here and there. They lost Keenan Allen, brought in Lad McConkey. I'm pretty sure they lost an offensive lineman, drafted Joe Alt. They brought in 2 running backs in J.K. and Gus Edwards. And this is what I'm talking about. The way he's running the ball, this is the Jim Harbaugh effect. You know what I'm saying? The Chargers, they didn't make too many changes, but Jim Harbaugh's coaching ability is guiding them to where they are right now. And I think he might not outcoach Mike Tomlin, but he's going to coach to his level. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this game. Obviously, you got Justin Herbert, who I think, when healthy and with the right system, is a top 10 quarterback. So yeah, give me the Chargers on this one. I honestly do think it's going to be just like a blowout, because I don't think the Steelers are that team. I think this is a very fraudulent 2 wins they have, and I want to see how they get tested against another 2-0 team. So, and I'm a big Derwin James fan, so I think he's still one of the best safeties in the league, even though he had a little bit of a quiet season last year. I think he's going to shake back this year. Give me the Chargers. I'll go 21-7. I think the Steelers finally get a touchdown.
Okay, so the real reason why the Chargers are 2-0, there's 2 things. Harbaugh and their O-line. Their O-line, I mean, Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Joe Alt. I know Trey Pipkins and Jamari Sawyer have both been getting reps at right guard. So, look, Justin Herbert, it's going to come down to, I believe his x-rays were negative. It's going to come down to if he's 100%, because he's another guy. He got banged up. I mean, everybody got hurt last week, guys. Everybody got hurt. Dobbins has been really impressive. 266 yards, 2 scores. But Alt and Slater going up against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith will decide this game. And keep in mind, too, Patrick Queen is a stud. Although I will say, Noah, Quentin Johnston, he did play the Panthers last week. It might be the reason why he had 2 touchdowns there.
Could be.
But I will tell you, I was impressed with his play. I'm intrigued to see how he does this week against the Steelers. Hopefully he does well. But I think Ladd McConkey is clearly above Josh Palmer on the depth chart, and him and Quentin Johnston right now are getting the same amount of targets. So the question is, who's going to step up and be that number one receiver for LA? I don't know, man. I think Ladd might be taking that because of his volume. I think Ladd has better volume. He is a nice lad. And on the flip, you talk about Watt and Highsmith. How about Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack going at you? And Justin Fields. I mean, that offensive line for Pittsburgh is going to have to keep up, right? Broderick Jones is really going to get tested. I think the Chargers escape with a 3-point win on the road in Pittsburgh. Give me a final score of 22-19. Also, if you're a big fantasy football fan, I wouldn't pick up Quentin Johnston this week. Instead, I would pick up Jawan Jennings, mainly because Debo's out. You want to get a receiver with volume. George Kittle's a little banged up. I'm not sure if he's going to play. Jawan Jennings is the guy to get, folks. I know a lot of people are high on Quentin Johnston. I think he's a very good NFL receiver, but fantasy-wise, Chargers run the football, man. Chargers run the football a lot. So be wary of that. Next up. This game should have been the game of the week. It is not. The Ravens are 0-2 and the Cowboys are 1-1. I mean, this is the NFL, right? Every year shit changes. Cowboys are coming off a 44-19 loss to the Saints. Dak looked bad. The whole offense looked bad. I don't know what McCarthy was doing with the play calling on the sideline. I mean, the Saints clearly had his number. Ravens lost to the Raiders. I don't know how that happens either. And Noah, I know what you're going to say about that. Isaiah Likely was used a lot less in week 2. They were targeting Mark Andrews more. I thought they got away from what they did really well. And Derrick Henry, while yes, he has 2 touchdowns through his first 2 games as a Raven, he only has 130 rushing yards on 31 carries. The O-line is not as good as it was last year. They lost Kevin Zeitler to the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately for them, they're going to have to play a lot better this week if they want to beat Dallas. I forget who we're up to here, but I think, Jason, we'll start with you on this one.
This is a hard one for me because as much as I hate the Cowboys, the Ravens haven't just shown me what I need to see yet for me to give them like these definite wins. Like, I feel like this is a game they should win, but the way they've been playing, I just don't know if that's going to happen. Because if you're losing to a team like the Raiders, granted they have Max Crosby and a few guys on the D-line, but I think the Cowboys, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, I think that's a way better defense that you're about to be playing against. And if Derrick Henry's been he's been in the end zone, but he hasn't been, like you said, like there's been no volume with him. He's really just been getting a first down here and there and a touchdown when they're at the goal line. He hasn't really been like that rushing king that we've seen like 2 years ago. Ravens defense, it's been a little shaky. It's been a little shaky. They didn't, for some reason, they didn't really rush that well in the first 2 weeks. Gardner Minshew actually, like, he wasn't pressured at all from what I saw. And I think the Ravens have the better quarterback for sure, but I think the Cowboys just have their game plan is just a little bit more figured out. The Ravens still look like they got a lot of question marks in that locker room. Is the number 1 tight end Mark Andrews, or is it Isaiah Likely? I mean, I feel like Likely killed the Chiefs in week 1. I don't know why he didn't get the ball that much last week, especially against a defense like the Raiders. You brought Mark Andrews back into the picture. He did a little bit, but he wasn't a game changer. the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb didn't really show me much against New Orleans. This is a hard one for me. I don't like the Cowboys, but I might have to give it to them. I think the Ravens fall to 0-3. Cowboys are at home. Yeah, I'm gonna take the Cowboys by a little bit. Also, Justin Tucker, I want to bring that up. Justin Tucker, I'm pretty sure he missed a field goal he's 1-7 on field goals from 50 yards or more. Since hitting the record-setting 66-yarder, he's 1-7 on 50 plus. I think that's something you got to watch out for because the Ravens do go to him a lot rather than taking a fourth down. Even though they have the backfield to extend their drives on down, they go to him a lot because of his reputation for kicking. But he's been struggling from 50 yards or further. I think that's something to pay attention to. Give me the Cowboys. 27, Ravens 21.
Yeah, I'm going the Baltimore Ravens on this one. I think if the Cowboys had kept it closer against the Saints, I might pick them because obviously the Ravens weren't impressive blowing the game to the Raiders, but the Cowboys just got killed. I mean, their running game is terrible. Rico Dowdle's averaging 3.7 and Ezekiel Elliott is averaging 3.5. I mean, I've seen a lot of Cowboys fans clamoring for Dalvin Cook to get some snaps, but if they can't block up front and they have this one-dimensional offense where they get behind and have to pass the ball, I don't really think it's going to matter. I have more faith in the Ravens running game than I do the Cowboys currently. Derrick Henry, even though he's had a slow start, he's still averaging over 4 yards per carry, and you're always going to be able to run the rock with Lamar Jackson there. I think it just comes down to, are they going to be able to get their passing game going? I really think they need to consider playing two tight ends on the field more. I think Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely can both contribute there, and I don't think they have, outside of Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, I don't really think Nelson Aguilar's that guy as a weapon. Defensively, it's tough because both looked very bad in week 2, but at least with the Ravens, they showed me something, at least in the first couple quarters, whereas the Cowboys got blown off the field the entire game pretty much. And speaking of Justin Tucker, Jason, you remind me of an interesting fact. I saw kickers this season from 50 plus are 35 out of 37, which is crazy when you think about that. But the two misses are both from Justin Tucker, man. He's the GOAT in my opinion, but he clearly does not have it like he used to. But I'm going the Ravens to win this one. Cowboys looking in complete disarray currently, and I still think I don't understand why they brought Mike McCarthy back. But, yeah, John Harbaugh's a way better coach in my opinion, and I think I'll coach McCarthy in this game. Give me the Ravens 27-17.
Ravens are 5-1 all time versus the Cowboys. They looked atrocious last week. Give me the Ravens. I don't see them going 0-3. I'm with you on this one, Noah. And next up, 49ers against the Rams. So, oh boy, this Rams team is really banged up, but so are the 49ers. The Rams are just in an awful place right now, injury-wise. Their number one wideout is DeMarcus Robinson. Tyler Higbee's out, too. I mean, their number one tight end is Colby Parkinson. These guys are back end of the roster guys that are the best options for them. Despite Debo and CMC being out, do the 49ers really have a chance to lose this one? I don't know. Who are we up to? Noah, we'll start with you.
I think so. I've been very disappointed with the Rams. I thought they'd be a solid team, and I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, you play the Lions week 1; it's a close game. Lions are a very good team. They got destroyed by the Cardinals. I mean, that game was over at halftime. It was like 31-3. Marvin Harrison Jr. with those 2 touchdowns. Elijah Higgins as well got one. Kyler Murray looking like Russell Wilson back there, evading defenders to find a deep pass. They weren't even competitive. And like Tom said, Puka's on IR. Cooper Kupp gets injured. You got DeMarcus Robinson. Who else? Is Jordan Whittington going to step up? No Tyler Higbee. Offensive line, meh. Defense looked horrible. And then on the other side, you have a 49ers team who, you know, they struggled against the Vikings, but clearly it looks like the Vikings have something there. It's not like they're a terrible team. Kyron Williams, who was, the fantasy football darling for a lot of people, averaging 2.5 yards per carry, and the Rams are averaging 3.2 as a team. That is horrible. Makes their offense completely one-dimensional. And let's just say against that 49ers defense, you do not want to be one-dimensional. Brock Purdy, I expect to bounce back. He was very poor against the Vikings, make a lot of terrible decisions. Their running game is still rock solid, and they have weapons. As long as I saw George Kittle got injured. Hopefully he's good to go. He's an elite talent when healthy, but he always gets injured. I know he came back in that game, so hopefully he's 100% raring to go. Jawan Jennings, I know you mentioned him earlier, Tom. I like him as an underrated guy. He has 101 yards in the season. And obviously Debo and Ayuk, I mean, they have a lot of options. And defense is really solid. 49ers win this game 24-16.
Jason?
Considering all the factors, Rams a little bit hurt, 49ers a little bit hurt. All that aside or included, 49ers have the better roster by far. If you put their offensive 11 against the Rams defensive 11, I feel like they just washed them. They're just too talented. I feel like the QB conversation is very close in terms of talent, because I feel like Stafford is able to do a little bit more with less, if that makes sense. Purdy wasn't awful last week, but he could have been better. Debo out. Ayuk hasn't really got involved that much, which is making me a little bit mad because they gave him all this money, and I picked him in fantasy thinking that was going to be the motivation to get him going, but he still hasn't got it figured out yet. CMC, I'm not sure if he's playing this week. Yeah, you could. He's not playing this week, so they're going back to Jordan Mason. It's going to be a close one. Both teams just have a lot of holes right now. Obviously, Puka on the IR. Cooper Kupp just went down, so their receiving room is struggling. Kyron Williams isn't living up to the expectations so far. Considering all the factors, I just still got to give it to the 49ers just because they're the more talented team, considering all the injuries and what they have like as their number 2 and 3 options are still serviceable, rather than you have like the Rams, who have guys that just barely made the 53-man roster, are now the guys like for their offense. So, and the 49ers defense looks like the healthy side right now. They don't really have too much going on. So I feel like that's going to be what puts them over the top. So I'm going to take the 49ers probably in a blowout, if I'm being honest. Division rival game, Rams at home. I just think it's going to be a quiet game for them. Give me the 49ers 27-10.
Yeah, the difference for me here is Jordan Mason can still run behind that offensive line well. Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings are better options than what the Rams have. Nick Bosa leads a stout defense with 2 sacks on the season. Fred Warner is an animal. I love that dude. He's a hard hitter, very fierce. Give me the 49ers. Give me a final score. I'm going to go a little lower here. I'm going to go 49ers 20, Rams 13. And that'll bring us to the Lions and the Cardinals. So 3 more games, guys, and then we're out of here. Detroit 101, Jason. Arizona 101. You thought Kyler Murray had the best quarterback performance in all of the NFC this past week. Could he do it again here at home against the team that probably should have made the Super Bowl last year if they held on?
Unfortunately, I don't think the Cardinals can do it again. Just not this week. At least we know for sure Marvin Harrison has arrived to the NFL now. He's here. He showed us flashes of Ohio State, what he was doing back there. James Conner, and I forgot the other guy's name. Benson, or is it
Trey Benson?
Trey Benson, FSU guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Connor and Benson, they're a good 1-2 punch back there. This is where, again, I just like the Lions here just because Dan Campbell, I like his style of coaching. I do think he's a better coach. Despite what I said last week, I do think overall Jared Goff is the better quarterback. Lions, obviously, that O-line is pretty good. Jamison Williams, who I think if he hasn't been picked up in your fantasy league, which I don't know how, but he should be. If he is, then good. If he's not, get that guy ASAP, because not only is he a good receiver, but he's a good utility guy. What I mean by that is they get him involved in plays where if you think the play is broken, and just because of his speed and how dynamic he is, he takes the ball for like another 10, 20 yards. And he, without even getting a touchdown, can easily get you like 10 to 15 points. Yeah, he's been one of my favorite players since he came in. I like the way they use him in the offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, I think that's one of the best backfields in the league. Amon-Ra, obviously. He's been off to a slow start from what I've seen in week 1. He didn't really get involved that much, but week 2, he kind of picked it up. Despite the loss, he did pick it up. But I think the Lions roster is going to be with the deciding factor. Defense, I think Aiden Hutchinson had like 4 sacks in the last game.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Yeah, he went berserk. Brian Branch had a good rookie year. I feel like he's going to be a sophomore to look out for to really take that next level up to being like one of the superstars in the league. And not too much to say, really. I just think the Lions, this is just a game that they should win. If they want to live up to that expectation of being that almost Super Bowl team last year, I feel like this is a game you have to win if you're going to be recognized as that team. So I'm going to pick the Lions in this one. Cardinals aren't a bad team, so I think it will be a little bit closer. So I'm going to say Lions. I'm going to say the Lions get about 24 points. Cardinals get 16.
My heart says the Cardinals, but my head says the Lions, man. I think they really should have beat the Bucs. I think that game was completely mismanaged by Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff threw way too many interceptions on, promising drives. Amon-Ra, he was a bit quiet week 1. He was great week 2. And Jamison Williams, man, this guy is finally healthy, and this guy is going to become an elite deep threat. He has 4 big plays of more than 20 yards this season, which is tied for second in the NFL behind only the New York Giants' Malik Neighbors. He is also tied for third in all of the NFL for receiving yards with Chris Godwin, 200, only behind Nico Collins, who has 252 for the Texans. Him and Amon-Ra, great 1-2 punch. Oh, by the way, you also have Sam Laporta, who is an elite tight end. Great 1-2 punch at running back, Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. If Jared Goff just cleans it up, that defense, they can get pressure. Aiden Hutchinson, 4.5 sacks last week. Kirby Joseph is a beast in the secondary as well. I do like the Cardinals to keep this game close. I think Kyler's looked really good. Marvin Harrison Jr. has looked rock solid. James Conner running the rock as well looked really good. But I'm going to pick the Lions. I think they just have a better team, more talent, and they should have won last week as well, in my opinion, and they let that game go. I don't think they're going to do it twice, but I do think the Cardinals keep it close. They're clearly, at least so far, a lot better than people would have expected. Marvin Harrison has added an explosive element to that offense. Trey McBride as well. I forgot to mention him. Really good tight end. But the Lions win this game. Give me 24-21.
All right, yeah, we're going 3-0 for Detroit here. Goff did have 2 picks last week. Bad performance against the Bucs. They're a tough team. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 19 targets. Noah, as you mentioned, he was targeted very often. Sam Laporta only had 3. I think if the Lions are going to win, they have to try to navigate Laporta more into the offense. That cost me fantasy football this past week in 2 of my leagues, having Sam Laporta and him not being utilized. It was very frustrating. They want to establish both Gibbs and Montgomery early. Jamison Williams has been a stud. Aiden Hutchinson has 5.5 sacks through 2 games. And defensively, they could confuse Kyler on every single level. Brian Branch on the back line. Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone each have 3 tackles for loss. With Kyler, it's the Marvin Harrison Jr. show. The problem is Marvin Harrison Jr., all of his stuff came in the first quarter. They really didn't need to go to him after that. Can they go to him with volume is the question against a good defense like Detroit. That's my personal concern. I was impressed that the Cardinals did sack Matthew Stafford 5 times, but guys, let's be real here. The Lions arguably have the best offensive line in the NFL with a top 3 tackle in Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, Kevin Zeitler. That's the best line in football. Lions win this game because of it. I think the Lions win by 4 to 6 points. Let's go with a final score of 27 to 21. Detroit. All right.
Here
Noah,
it is. I know what it is.
Here it is, man. Look, your Atlanta Falcons are 1-1 because you finally have a quarterback.
Yep.
This is a game last year. You said you would have lost the Eagles something like 30-9 if this were Desmond Ridder at quarterback. But you got rid of the Ridder, and in comes Captain Kirk to save the day. Isaiah Pacheco is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured fibula, and the 6-week mark. So the 6-week mark is when the cast comes off. Fantasy owners, if you're targeting a Chiefs running back, do not grab Carson Steele. Grab Samaje Perine. He is a PPR beast. Carson Steele had a fumble last week. He is the team's fullback. He should stay in that role. It'll be Perine as the tailback until Kareem Hunt is ready, which might take a few weeks because he hasn't played any organized football all off season. So definitely target Samaje Perine. If he's available and you want to try Carson Steele, sure, go ahead. But Noah, enough of me, and let's get to more of you.
Man, this one is tough. Like, it's one of those games. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said Chiefs in a blowout, pretty much. But after what I saw last night, look, I know people say the Eagles lost that game, but I mean, that's a game I've seen so many times over the years, Tom, where the Falcons would just lay down and die and not even be competitive. But they stayed in the game. They fought back. They won a game. They probably lose 99 times out of 100. But who gives a, they won the game. That's all that matters. Kirk Cousins, he was poor for probably the first 2.5 quarters, I say. And then he gets that big touchdown pass to Darnell Mooney, and they start getting it going again, and he was excellent. I mean, perfect. The final drive. Bijan is an animal. I mean, this guy's just a natural running the football, and he can catch it as well. Algier is a solid number 2. Darnell Mooney, we finally have a number 2 wide receiver, which we've been really struggling to replace since Julio Jones, since we traded him, because it was basically just Calvin Ridley and a couple guys, and obviously Calvin Ridley went, and, but we got one now, I think. But defensively, been really surprised. Jesse Bates, animal. Judon has been a great addition pass rushing, which we badly needed because our pass rush was terrible last year. A.J. Terrell's a stud at corner. Caden Ellis, underrated guy, doesn't get a lot of attention at middle linebacker, but I really like him as well. I think this will be close, man. The last time the Falcons played the Chiefs, I want to say 2 years ago. I think they had even Mariota playing or someone. It was not someone spectacular. They kept it close for most of that game, and the Chiefs, I think, pulled away in the 4th quarter, but it was not a blowout like you would expect. I actually have more faith in the Falcons' defense in this game than I do the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have looked suspect defensively. I know they played Joe Burrow, but, man, you're letting Io Sabas, kind of, a up-and-coming, unknown at tight end have 2 touchdowns on you. They needed some major flags to go their way to win that game. And the Ravens, I think, again, they were an inch away from 27-27 overtime. I think this will be a close game, but I am probably still going to pick the Chiefs. I think they have Patrick Mahomes, it's always hard to bet against him. I will say, though, he looked pretty mediocre against the Bengals, made some bad decisions, bad picks. But look, every time I pick against the Falcons, they win. So let's go with the Chiefs to win this one, 27-21.
Jason?
Yeah, Noah said a lot of the things I wanted to say, so I'm gonna keep my answer short. I am gonna pick the Chiefs, but Mahomes hasn't really looked like Mahomes in the first 2 games. He even had a pick against week 1 against the Ravens. I feel like he's kind of going back to his play style, like when he had Tyreek Hill, rather than going through all his reads. He's kind of just hoping for a big play and just throwing it down there, and that's what gets you picked off. Don't get me wrong, Xavier Worthy is a great athlete, but you cannot just chuck it down the field to him when he runs a vertical. That's not going to work, especially against a disciplined football team, which I think the Falcons are defensively more than the Bengals. So you definitely don't want to throw those this week. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs just because I don't know why. I feel like for some reason Mahomes plays more with a chip on his shoulder when he's away. He's a little bit more focused. Hopefully Travis Kelce can like wake up. It's week 3. Like he's looking like he's not even ready to play football yet. And then one thing I wanted to say about Kareem Hunt, obviously he won't be ready for this game, but Kareem Hunt was actually on the Chiefs before. He has a good relationship with Andy Reid. He knows the system. So I think they're going to push to get him involved as soon as they can. And when they do, I feel like that's going to be a good not addition, but placeholder for them while Pacheco gets healthy. Like you mentioned, Carson Steele, young guy. He made a rookie mistake not holding onto the ball. But he did get a lot of big 4th downs that kept the Chiefs in the game. I do think what's really gonna ultimately lose the game for the Vikings, not Kirk Cousins, because he looked great in that second half against the Eagles, and I just think it's gonna be the pass rush that really gets to him, because you got Chris Jones. They move him all over. They put him at tackle, 3rd and long. They probably mess around and put him at end. I think the pass rush is gonna be what wins the game for the Chiefs. Offensively, the Falcons aren't bad at all. It's just the real question for me is, will Kirk Cousins have the time to make those plays? And if he does, it's going to be a close game, I think. But if he doesn't, I'm not going to be too hard on the Falcons. I'm just going to say the Chiefs win the game, 27-20, just by a touchdown.
Chris Jones against Drew Dalman. That's the matchup for me. Your center Noah is going to have his hands full, because Kirk Cousins, the only time he's good outside the pocket is when he's running a designed bootleg. He's been very good at those throughout the course of his career. You need to protect this man. He is 36 years old. He is not a young cookie, guys. Chiefs reunion. I remember I was hosting Review and Preview the day that Kareem Hunt got released with the elevator hotel incident back in 2017. I remember hosting the show that day, and then it happened live while we were on air. 7 years later, he's back. He's still in the league. Between Hunt, Pirine, and Steele, I'm not exactly sure who the number 1 guy is going to be. It sounds like it's going to be a running back by committee. Here's a fun stat. Noah, I think you'll appreciate this. Over the last 5 years, no quarterback has more fourth quarter / OT comebacks than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has 15 fourth quarter or overtime comebacks.
There you go. And people say he chokes.
He's found the connection with Darnell Mooney. You expect to see Kyle Pitts get involved a little bit here.
Yes.
Personally, I think the Chiefs are going to win the football game. Oh, man, the bettors out there are going to hate me. Falcons only lose by 3. And here's why. Atlanta is home, and their defense is drastically improved. In my personal opinion, the Falcons have on paper, Noah, I think they have a solid offensive line, and that's why they went out and got Kirk Cousins. They also have a really solid defense. Jesse Bates back there. I believe you signed Justin Simmons.
Yep.
Recently. So you got veterans back there who can read Mahomes. And like Jason was talking about before, Mahomes is throwing the ball deep a lot lately. And, right now, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are the options. There's no Hollywood Brown. There's no Isaiah Pacheco. Will Travis Kelce get more involved? I have the Chiefs winning this one. Final score, give me 23-20, Kansas City. And that will bring us to our final game and the bonus game. I don't want to put this on the card, but I did. Buffalo Bills, man. Is it safe to say through 2 weeks they look like the most I don't want to say dominant team in football because they had a close game with the Cardinals, but out of all the playoff teams from last year, they look the most consistent throughout the first 2 games, I think. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that looks more consistent than them, but they look really, really good. The way they manhandled Miami. Jason, I think we're up to you here. We'll start with you on this one. Does the lone New York team find a way to go to 3-0, or does Jacksonville take a happy flight back down to Florida?
Another hard one for me. Before the season started, I wasn't a big believer in the Bills. I thought they were going to take a massive decline, but it seems like they're playing better than last year. So far, Josh Allen's just one of those guys. I feel like really doesn't matter who he has, he's going to get his regardless. The defense was great against Miami. They absolutely wiped the floor with them. I don't know. I just have a question mark about this game because Jacksonville, I feel like this is the game they have to win before they get on that path of like, all right, when are we going to get a win? Because I think they're another team that has a pretty tough schedule coming up. So if they don't, like, I think this is a pretty even game. Like, both these teams, like, I don't think one team is way better than the other on either side of the ball. I think these are 2 evenly matched teams in terms of their offense and defense and how they play. They got 2 young quarterbacks that could throw the ball deep and could move when they have to. 2 stud running backs, Travis Etienne, James Cook, who had a great game against Miami. I just think the difference maker is going to be the receivers in this one. Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr. Like, I think that's who should win the game, considering all the hits Buffalo took to their secondary this past offseason. I'm gonna go Jacksonville. I think this is the game they win. Give me Jacksonville 24. Make that 23-19.
Tom, you want me to answer this one unbiased, or you want me to ramp it up a little bit?
It's the last game of the night. You can ramp it up a little bit.
All right. So I think Buffalo wins this game. I don't even know if it's particularly close. Josh Allen is the man. He's looked great so far, even though he doesn't have a true number 1 run receiver. I like Keon Coleman, but I mean, Shakir's their leading receiver. James Cook, my boy from UGA, has looked amazing so far, and Ray Davis is their number 2. Looked really solid. On defense, Greg Rousseau looked really good. But on the other side, man, Jacksonville has no running game. They're past Brian Thomas. I don't think they have a threat at receiver. And Trevor Lawrence has looked terrible. And you know what? I think by halftime, Trevor Lawrence gets benched for Mac Jones, and everyone watching this game switches to the Commanders-Bengals game, because this game is going to end 35-13 in favor of the Buffalo Bills at home. Jaguars are not that good. The Bills are amazing. Give me the Bills in a blowout. Embarrassing.
Can I ask, respectfully, are you joking about the benched part? Like, in terms of like screw Trevor Lawrence, that's it? Or, I know that sounds silly, they just paid him a boatload of money. Or, this game is out of control, let's just keep Trevor Lawrence healthy for next week.
You know what, Tom? I'll let you decide which one I actually mean. I won't ruin the surprise.
Okay, so the Jaguars have lost 10 straight games dating back to last year. The Jacksonville Jaguars were 8-3 last year. 8-3. They finished the season 8-9. And now they're 0-2, guys. It's really, really bad. Trevor Lawrence has really struggled to find his groove. Christian Kirk, just 2 catches over the first 2 weeks. I will say, though, defensively, they're doing pretty okay. Noah, your boy, Trayvon Walker, is there. Man, I wish I could post a picture up of you standing next to Trayvon Walker at Trevor Bank Field.
Big boy, man.
Yeah, he is a big boy. Josh Allen has been really, really good. But last week, numbers-wise, fantasy-wise, kind of sucked, to be honest. It really did suck. Buffalo just got so far ahead, they didn't need Allen to throw the football. James Cook had 3 touchdowns last week, rushed it in twice. That matches his season total for rushing touchdowns last season. That goes to show you how replacing Ken Dorsey with Joe Brady has really helped this offense excel. I don't know about you, Noah, but as a UGA fan, I think replacing Dorsey with the younger Brady can unlock the keys to success for James Cook in this offense. And my God, you got Greg Rousseau and Von Miller coming at you with Ed Oliver up the middle, Daquan Jones, piss-poor offensive line. It was so bad. They traded for Ezra Cleveland in the middle of the season last year. Jacksonville keeps this close. I'm not saying their season is over. It's not. They play in the AFC South. But Buffalo's going to win this game, in my opinion. Final score, I'm going to be a little bit nicer. Say Trevor Lawrence does not get benched. 28-17, Buffalo. Is that fair, or is that not fair, Noah?
I think you're disrespecting the Bills a bit, man. I think they could add 14 more points to that score.
Let me just bring this up. All time, Jaguars are 10-9 against the Buffalo Bills. The Jaguars have won 3 out of the last 4 matchups, including the last 2.
It's going to be 3 of the last 5 after this.
All right. On that note, the Trevor Lawrence hate train is officially adjourned. I guess we're not going to Waffle House the next time we're in Jacksonville. Safe to say. But, guys, it's a really fun show with both of you. Noah and Jason, thank you both for coming back. Really appreciate it. You guys are a lot of fun to talk to. Noah, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. Great to talk college with you. And Jason, great to have you back for the NFL Insight, bringing a new, little younger touch to the show. It's definitely great to see. Get those different opinions out there on stuff. And I think we did a good job once again, guys.
Yeah, agreed.
Indeed. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. On behalf of Jason Edmondson and Noah Dog Dibler, or J2 Shifty and Noah Dog Dibler, I'm Tom Scavetta saying so long. You've been watching Review and Preview here on YouTube and Facebook Live. Have a good night, everybody.